The story of World War II does not begin with gunfire or explosions. It begins with silence. The silence of a broken Europe in 1918. After the First World War ended, the continent was shattered. Germany had lost everything: its pride, its economy, its hope. The Treaty of Versailles forced Germany to accept full blame for the war, pay impossible reparations, and shrink its military to a fraction of its size. Millions of Germans felt humiliated. They believed their leaders had betrayed them. In the streets of Berlin, Munich, and Hamburg, hunger and anger grew like wildfire. And inside that chaos, a new voice emerged. A voice that promised While Europe watched, Germany started rearming secretly. Tanks were built underground. Soldiers were trained in hidden camps. And Hitler made a decision. He would break the Treaty of Versailles piece by piece. In 1936, he marched troops into the demilitarized Rhineland. Britain and France protested, but they did nothing. And Hitler learned something crucial. The world powers were not ready to fight. Every time they stayed silent, Hitler grew bolder. In 1938, he annexed Austria in what he called the Anschluss. Crowds cheered as German soldiers marched into Vienna. No bullets, no resistance. It felt too easy. And when something feels easy, ambition grows. Hitler turned his eyes toward Czechoslovakia. He claimed Germans living in the Sudetenland were being mistreated and needed protection. Britain and France, desperate to avoid another war, gave him the Sudetenland at the Munich conference. Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain returned home saying, "Now nothing stood between him and Poland." At dawn on September 1st, 1939, German troops, tanks, and aircraft poured across the Polish border. The Blitzkrieg, lightning war, had begun. Villages burned, railways were destroyed, skies roared with constant bombing. And as Europe awoke to a new reality, Britain and France could no longer stay silent. On September 3rd, they declared war on Germany. In that single moment,
And yet, as the world stepped into this new war, no one truly understood how quickly everything would collapse. Poland, the first target, was fighting bravely, but the German war machine was unlike anything Europe had seen before. The skies rumbled non-stop as the Luftwaffe destroyed railways, bridges, and communication lines. German tanks moved like a steel river, fast and unstoppable, cutting through Polish defenses in days. Villages that once echoed with children's laughter now shook under the sound of artillery fire. Inside Poland's cities, families hid in dark basements, listening to bombs falling above them, praying for morning light. But the Blitzkrieg did not give them time. It came like a storm, swift, violent, and merciless. Britain and France had declared. As Europe watched Poland fall, a deep fear settled across the continent. People realized this war would not be like the last one. This war was faster. This war was darker. This war was built on hatred, ideology, and a leader who believed the world belonged to him. In Berlin, Hitler celebrated his victory, but his ambitions did not end with Poland. His eyes now turned toward Western Europe, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and beyond. Meanwhile, Britain prepared for a long, uncertain struggle, forming air raid shelters, enforcing blackouts, and training new soldiers. But even at this moment, European leaders still believed that diplomacy would save them. They never imagined that one assassination could pull the entire world into a war. They thought tension would cool down, but behind closed doors, alliances were tightening like chains. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, already weak from the inside, finally saw an opportunity to crush Serbia.
The attack in Sarajevo gave them the excuse they had been waiting for. In Vienna, generals and ministers repeated the same line: "If we don't act now, we will never act again." This time, it wouldn't be solved by words. Power would decide the future of Europe. Serbia offered cooperation. They even accepted most demands, but Austria wanted something more: control. Their ultimatum contained conditions no independent nation could accept without surrendering its dignity. Then came the most dangerous move of all. From Berlin, Germany gave Austria the infamous blank check, a promise that whatever Austria decided, Germany would stand behind it. This single message shifted the balance of Europe forever. On the other side, Russia watched every step carefully. Serbia was more than an ally, it was a Slavic brother, and Russia could not stand aside if Austria attacked. Quietly, Russian commanders began preparing their army, knowing that once Austria moved in, there would be no turning back. Meanwhile, daily life across Europe continued normally. Trains were running, markets were open, people were sitting in cafes reading their morning newspapers. No one knew that their world was about to collapse. And inside those newspapers, hidden between the lines, was a date that would change the course of history. 28th July 1914. War was coming. And then the moment arrived. Austria-Hungary fired the first shells into Serbia. This shot wasn't aimed at one country. It was fired at the entire world. Alliances began to activate. Telegrams traveled across continents, and the spark that started in Sarajevo now turned into a fire that would burn all of Europe. The real climax of Episode 1 begins here, the first 7 days of the war, when the map of Europe started to change forever.
But even as Europe drifted toward danger, many leaders still underestimated the storm that was coming. They believed it would be a small regional conflict, quickly contained and easily controlled. But they failed to understand one thing. The world in 1914 was tied together by alliances so rigid, so automatic, that once one nation moved, the others would be dragged with it whether they wanted to or not. In Vienna, the halls of power were filled with voices demanding action. Some politicians warned that attacking Serbia would unleash a chain reaction. But the military leaders brushed those warnings aside. They were confident, almost arrogant, believing the war would be short, decisive, and glorious. They expected their troops to march through Serbia in a matter of days. No one imagined trenches, gas, famine, or millions dying. They were preparing for victory celebrations, not funerals. In Serbia, fear and uncertainty spread among the people. They knew Austria-Hungary was far stronger, better equipped, and had the support of Germany. Yet despite their fear, there was also a deep sense of pride. Serbia had survived countless invasions before, and many believed that they would survive this one too. The streets of Belgrade were quiet, but beneath the silence was a nation holding its breath, waiting for the first shot. In Berlin, Kaiser Wilhelm II was restless. One moment he talked about peace, and the next he encouraged Austria to strike hard. His own advisors struggled to predict his mood. Some believed he wanted to prove Germany's strength and expand its influence across Europe. Others thought he simply did not realize the consequences of his decisions. But whatever the truth was, his support for Austria acted like fuel poured onto a fire. Across Europe, newspapers printed headlines filled with fear, propaganda, and speculation. Some claimed the crisis would be resolved peacefully. Others warned of a coming European catastrophe. Ordinary people, unaware of their future, went about their daily lives. Children played in the streets,
farmers worked in their fields, and families prepared for summer holidays, not knowing that in just a few weeks, millions of those people would be marching to the front lines. Meanwhile, Russia continued mobilizing. Trains carrying soldiers, horses, and equipment moved steadily toward the western borders. Generals believed that if they didn't move fast enough, Germany would crush them before they could defend themselves. Mobilization